We sell Antelope products, and we wanted to talk to you a little bit about where you guys are at these days. I mean, you guys have come a long way from clocking to now a really broad range of monitor controlling, like a fantastic hub, mic pre's. You know, your converters now have you have a 32-channel converter with Thunderbolt now.
Yeah.
Now that's pretty exciting. What's new? What are you excited about these days?
Well, I'm excited about finally getting to the point in my life where I can kind of complete a circle. I have started in a certain way. I have moved in so many directions, and now I feel like I'm coming back. I have been making interfaces. This is not the first time I made interfaces. It may not be as well known, but I was the first guy that made an 8-channel mic pre interface. I was in fact the first guy that shipped an 8-channel interface. This was probably nearly 20 years ago, and it was of course a PCI interface. So I have done, back then I had to do the mic pre's for my own interface, and it was more difficult to do because right now you can buy a TI chip. You know, it's got a TI mic pre, digital controllable, and you're done, and everybody's doing that. When I was doing it, I actually had to do it from scratch. So I had to figure out a lot about the mic pre's. Actually, by education, I'm an analog engineer. I have a double degree from University of Michigan, which is at that time it was, you know, computer engineering and electronics was like, you could have single major. Now it's of course very specialized. But I started out, you know, on the analog. This is what I used to do, and I was interested in a biomedical instrumentation, you know, things I would do things for professors that would measure like various animals, cats, you know, do brain recordings. This is what stuff that I started on with, and this is kind of similar to mics in the way that the signals are very small and need low noise circuits. So I learned how to do like high quality analog stuff. Then we went into DSP as that became available, and then into chip design, you know, all this stuff, and digital stuff, programming, C programming. So I started out with analog, then moved to DSP, moved to digital, moved to software, and then this was in the company called Aardvark, and now of course in Antelope we kind of went back to the clocks because that was one of the things most people associate me with, and that's where I made one of the strongest contributions, arguably, and very, very visible. So it was easier to start a new company on something that people know you for. But that's, and we stayed with clocks, and we introduced a lot of interesting technologies like the rubidium clock, and we've moved on to improve the jitter management module. So that was very, very interesting, and it became the foundation for things that later were to come. So when it was logical to move from clocks then to conversion, because clocks are used to improve the conversion quality, and a lot of people still use our clocks to improve the sound of their interfaces. And I think you had a question about some interfaces and clocks.
So what we were talking about is, I guess my question was, what is it that makes some converters take to clocking better than others?
Well, it's actually a complicated thing. It's not just the converter itself, but it's more so the circuit that receives the clocking signal and the way that it then locks to it. Because when you have an external clock, a word clock, so on, you know, you usually have some sort of a locking circuit, a PLL of sorts. And you know, traditionally it's an analog PLL, and depending how that PLL is designed, some of them are more, they follow more the signal that comes in, and others try to kind of like lock onto it but loosely and then regenerate their own clocking.
So they're doing their own thing anyway.
Yeah, so the ones that are doing their own thing very strongly, they do tend to be less susceptible than the ones that are more straightforward, traditional.
Cool. All right. I mean, have you seen any these days that work really well with your clocks? I mean, obviously your very own interfaces are the best, and they do have obviously have your clocking technology within them, all of them.
Well, to be honest, I don't really do that kind of research. I'm not, I'm more interested in creating the technology that I do. I'm not so much the guy that gets like 15 other products and try it with this, try it with that. Maybe some application guys could answer that question, but I don't know.
Okay, and so what's exciting to you now? What's on the horizon? I mean, it seems to me like you guys are covering a lot of ground right now.
Well, what's exciting to me is the integration, all the stuff that I felt like I spent so many years, over 25 years, on bits and pieces of technologies, which includes the mic pre's, the DSP, various kinds of interfaces. And now I feel finally like at this point in my life I'm strong enough to take on the question of actually building the product I wanted to build maybe 25 years ago, but I couldn't.
Awesome.
And so what I'm doing is I'm doing the best that I learned in the analog circuitry and putting it into mic pre's, and I'm doing the best that I learned in the DSP, and we just finished an interesting reverb. This is the Aura Verb, which is one of the early products. There's going to be more DSP coming from us, the plugins, the DSP.
Really?
That's going to continue to be developed, and that's what the customers are going to. The customers that bought these products are going to be able to upgrade that.
And make use of
that's what we're doing on the
exciting.
reverb. So what's exciting is to kind of achieve the balance between these technologies, and also, integrating the clock, which is obviously the foundation, the conversion, the analog circuitry. So that is kind of the right balance, because these things, they contribute in different ways, but it's exactly the right combination. It's a little bit like cooking, you can take the great ingredients, but the way you combine them. So I feel I'm very, very excited, and listening to the customers and trying to identify where the trends are going, because the industry is changing, the world is changing. There's a new generation of people coming all the time, and they are brought up on different technologies,
and their needs are different, and even just the way they relate to technology in general is different. Their attention spans are maybe a little bit different too.
Their vision is different, their styles are different, the musical axis they work on, Like I'm the guy who likes opera, but that's just, I like to sing opera, but that's just
sing?
me, I sing.
No way.
But it's funny, again, and I started singing in my 50s, that's when I really got into it. Very, very interesting story. But
so you found your voice in that?
Yeah, literally.
Yeah.
And of course, that makes me interested in doing things like, like Zen I did. Like, this is something I can use.
Right.
I can actually walk with it, record myself, record my teacher or other
Very
musicians.
Cool.
So some of it came from my own interests, but there's other guys who are not so much into the classical stuff, and they're the plugins and the digital stuff, and addressing this new generation. We're doing stuff with like touch screens, because we're seeing that as interesting. That's interesting to me, being able to control my stuff from touch screens. Because I am the guy that I'm a little bit iconoclastic. I like to combine things that people think they shouldn't be combined. I can perfectly imagine a device that would have vacuum tubes and a DSP processor. That to me is not a problem.
Controllable
it's kind of
from
cool.
your iPhone.
And controlled from an iPhone or an Android phone or whatever.
Great.
So that's what's interesting to me. It's like how you take the old stuff and you translate it to reaching the new generation, the people that are coming up, that are establishing themselves now, that are having ideas that are working now. That's what's cool.
Very cool. Well, listen, thank you very much for doing the interview. It was great speaking with you. All righty.